All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our undergraduate research panel. My name is Brianna, and I am a grad student mentor with the Star Scholars Program at the University of Michigan. And we are going to get started. So as a reminder, today's panel, What is Your Role in Research, is part of our Star Scholars Fall Seminar Series. We have 3 seminars left in this series after today that you can RSVP at this link, which I will drop in the chat. In addition, we'll be holding the Star Scholars Program winter workshops during the winter semester, and we will talk a little bit about that opportunity later today as well. So here is that link that you can navigate to RSVP for additional seminars. There are a couple objectives for today's seminar. The first is to share goals, benefits, and admissions information for the Star Scholars Program. And the second is for our panelists to share their research experiences, give advice, and answer questions about undergraduate research. There are a few reminders for today. Please remember to keep your mic muted unless you're invited to speak. We want you to ask questions via the chat, and we'll do our best to get to each one. Please feel free to turn on the live transcript if you would like to. You can click the More button in your Zoom feature and then navigate to enable live transcript. And if you have not filled out our pre-survey, please, and this is your first session that you've attended as part of our fall seminar series, please remember to do so.
All right, everyone. My name is Ana Patricia. I'm also a mentor with the STARS program, and I'm a 5th-year PhD student in developmental psych. So to get us started, we wanted to share a bit with you guys about the STAR Scholars Program. So STAR stands for Students Tackling Advanced Research, and the program aims to build scholarship, transferable skills, academics, and research experiences for all of the students that join the program. The main goals of the program are to prepare students for research, increase the number of students that are conducting research at advanced levels, and provide inclusive academic support for diverse groups of students. So we do this through a mentoring program that pairs undergrad students with graduate students, such as Brianna and I, and we serve as mentors. There's also informational panels, skill coaching workshops, scientific talks that are held by current U of M faculty, and professional networking opportunities for you guys to learn about what happens in academia, what happens in research, and what all of that look like. So seminars like this are just the start. There's so much more to the STAR program. In terms of eligibility, STAR Scholars is a program that seeks to help increase the pipeline of underrepresented students into psychology-related fields. So with that, students who come from underrepresented backgrounds, such as students of color, first-gen students, LGBTQ+ students, undocumented students, all those students fall into that category of underrepresented groups. In addition, individuals who've experienced financial hardship, or if you've shown a commitment to equity and inclusion in psychology, you're also invited to apply to the program. So what are we looking for? First, we're looking for students who have strong academic performance. So there's no hard cutoff in terms of what that means, but obviously we're expecting GPA to be relatively high. We want you to show some interest in psychology or in biopsychology research. This program is for students with little to no research experience, and that's important. So we're not expecting you to have done a ton of research already, but we do want you to have an interest in the field. So maybe you've taken a class, you've worked in a lab in a different area, But on the application, we want you to share with us how STAR will help you achieve your goals that are related to that psych research. Third, we expect you to be looking for structured mentorship opportunities because that's what we're offering. So Star Scholars isn't a class, it's not a club, it's a program with structured mentorship. And as you might imagine, students looking for mentorship will be in the best fit for this kind of program. Finally, we do prioritize underclassmen. So if you're in your final year, you won't have the time to use what you learn in STAR to pursue those research opportunities. So that's really the only reason we seek the freshmen and the sophomores or even juniors, just because they have more time to actually put the skills into use. So if you have any questions or you're interested in applying, we do have a website, which I can copy the link and paste it in just a moment. And the application is already posted. So you can reach out to us via email, and then keep an eye on the fact that the application is due about a month away on Friday, November 3rd. So if this sounds like a program that is interesting to you and that you think you would be eligible for and would gain a lot from, keep this in mind as it is coming up rather quickly.
All right. So before we introduce our panelists today, we'd like to give a few basic tips for students in getting interest, for students that are interested in getting involved in undergraduate research. First of all, you don't have to start your research position with your own research idea. Most opportunities will use a mentor-mentee model, meaning that you'll start out by helping a current graduate student or collaborating on existing projects in the lab. And as you learn in that position, you may come up with your own interests and ideas that you can pursue later on. You also need to have knowledge of the advanced skills being used in the lab before you begin. Oftentimes, research assistants will start with basic tasks alongside the current lab members. As you learn about the lab group and the project, you can build more extensive and advanced skills. If you're interested in trying something new, just ask your mentors.
Another important point is to take advantage of your transferable skills. So you're learning all kinds of things in your other classes and the activities that you're doing on campus, or maybe you also work part-time. So think of the skills like communication, initiative, analytical skills, your teamwork, your strong work ethic. Those are all things that can be put to good use as a research assistant. Once you're in a lab, you'll find that taking initiative will be generally rewarded. So you can go deeper by letting the lab manager or supervisor know that you're interested in reading papers that relate to the purpose of the lab or project you're working on. And I know, having worked with undergraduate RAs, the ones who asked the most questions were the ones that were signaling that they were ready for more responsibility. So that's exactly what you want to do if your goal is to go to graduate school and pursue a career in research.
Okay, so now we're going to introduce our undergraduate research panel. Once again, we invite you to ask questions during the panel using the chat. After every panelist has answered a question, we'll read any questions from the chat that you may have asked. So these are our panelists. I will ask them, or Anna Patricia will ask them to introduce themselves in just a moment. But we have some alum and some seniors. And I will stop sharing screen at this time so that we can see everybody. And
Alrighty, so we want to start off just by having our panelists, if you could share your name your class year, your major, and the name of the project or the lab that you worked on, and the university if it wasn't U of M. So feel free, whoever wants to go first, and then we can just popcorn it over.
I would be happy to introduce myself. My name is Rachna. I actually graduated from U of M in 2022. I studied psychology and I did an English major also. And since graduating, I've been working as an RA in a full-time position at Brown University. I've been working at the in the med school, the Department of Psychiatry over here on a project about substance use, cannabis, and trauma. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I can go next. My name is Augustine. When I was an undergraduate, I worked with Dr. Lustig. She was my mentor for my thesis, and I was also a STAR alum. And then I graduated with BCN in 2023, which is very recent in April. And then I'm working full time as a research technician in Kazarowski Lab, which is at the med school here at the BSRB.
I can go next. Hi, my name is Zeta. I'm a senior at the University of Michigan. My major is psychology. My focus is educational psych. As for like the projects I'm currently working on, oh my gosh, I'm doing a lot. Okay, so I'm on a systematic review for racism and school violence, school safety. Yeah, something along those lines. And then another one I'm on. I work with youth enrichment services. It gets kids like research experience and work experience from like low income backgrounds and stuff. I do like program evaluation for them. And then the last one, which I'm doing like my honors thesis on too, is like a school safety program implementation evaluation in the Bronx.
I'm Maral. I'm a senior as well, majoring in psychology, and I'm minoring in gender and health. And I'm currently in the SPLAT lab, which is the Stigma Psychopathology and Assessment Lab. And we just launched a project actually called the Spectrum Study, where I'd say like the main focus of our lab is we look at like how experiences of discrimination can affect marginalized populations. We're most focused on sexual and gender minority populations, and then also looking at how stigma can affect that as well in terms of just like clinician bias, general stigma, either around like that identity, that marginalized identity, or around the disorder as well.
Thank you. You're all involved in very interesting things, so that's very exciting to hear. Would you guys mind sharing with us why did you choose to get involved in research?
I can go first again. I well, because of, grad school and psych and stuff, research is a huge part of that. I decided in my uh sophomore year of college to get involved in some research on campus. I started out working at the Global Feminisms Project at U of M. It's a really cool project. I'm not sure if y'all have heard of it, but I think it's mostly out of it's a lot of qualitative work. Yeah, and then I did a thesis also and, got involved with STAR and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely just to get some good research experience on my CV, get some posters out, and just also get to explore what I'm interested in and what kind of research I would want to do through grad school.
I can go second. I think for me, it started when I was in high school. So in my high school psychology class, when we were learning about the brain and how it works, I wasn't satisfied with what we learned at school. It was just like minimum surface level, and I want to know more. So I asked my teachers, and my teachers couldn't answer them. She said, "Go to Google Scholar, read them," and then it's a big literature, so it's a mess. I didn't know how to read through it. I didn't know how to do it. So I as soon as I got to college, I know I would get into research because I want to know more. And to put it simply, yes, of course you have to enjoy it, but for me, and then to put it the simplest, if why do I want to do research? It's like I like to know things, and I want to know. I want to make sure that the things I know are can be validated. I want to make sure the things I know are right. So the way to do that is to do research, and that is why I got into research. Thank you.
I can go next. Let me think why I got into research specifically. Well, I'm like the Stars program alum too. I didn't realize like previously I wanted to go to grad school. I'm interested in like education stuff, but from like a psych aspect. Um, and I thought you had to pay for grad school, so I didn't intend on going. And then when I went to this program, I learned you can get it funded, and then I was like, oh, I can do that. So, but yeah, I've always wanted to do research because that's kind of like my career path I'm oriented towards, like being like a professor and a researcher. Um, why I guess why I care about the research I do, just trying to I want to go into research to change the narrative about just like the people I love and yeah, just low income people in general. If you look, a lot of the research is really deficit based. I want to change it to more like an asset based framework and kind of just like give respect and give back to all the people I couldn't take with me.
Um, my answer is pretty similar to Augustine's, where like I honestly just wanted to learn more. And like to learn more about stuff that I'm specifically like passionate in because you can only go into so much depth in a class and to also be able to like make contributions to something that you're passionate about um, was important to me. And then there was also the aspect of I also wasn't aware of like how important research is for if you like want to apply to PhD programs in the future. And I learned that through the STAR program. I just like my knowledge about like graduate schools was very limited. So that also was a driving factor for me.
Thanks, everyone. Could you tell us how you got into the research groups that you have worked with? So what are the steps that you took to obtain the different positions that you guys have been involved with? And I'm gonna have you guys swap the order that you've been going in. Just go backwards this time.
Um, so I didn't really know how to apply. I learned through the STAR program how to do that. And so the lab that I'm currently in, my or the lab PI like actually gave a guest lecture at one of the STAR meetings. So that's how I learned about his research specifically. And I had just reached out to him and asked if he was like hiring RAs, and he wasn't at the time, but he did get back to me like later in the summer for when applications would be open. But I was also just applying to other labs at the time, mainly utilizing the psych department website. They just like have a list of labs and then clicking on the labs and seeing if there's an application. Um, so yeah, but I will say that I feel like I was a bit picky with, what research lab I wanted to get into. I wasn't just like, oh, I need research, so I'll do anything. Like I did want it to be something I was genuinely interested in.
Important.
So I could talk about two. I did three things to get into research. The lab. First, what I did was I joined Europe, which is very popular in undergraduate, right? The program you sign up and then they have I think a little seminar or something like that. and then they support you. They tell you how to write emails, and they tell you how to do things. But the problem is it's like a mentor-mentee program, but there's only one mentor and there's like 25 mentees, so the mentor can't really take care of all the mentees, as much as he or she wants to. So it was hard. And then I applied to about I think seven labs, and I didn't like I was close to getting in it, but I didn't get in it. But then I saw the STAR program, and then they have more support than Europe, and then I was like, this is great. And actually, Cindy actually referred me to STARS, and then I applied to STARS, and then I got in, and then that's from STARS. Unfortunately, we got shut down because of COVID, but at least I learned, at least I got the connection to get into other lab. And then I think my mentor know Cindy, so she referred me to Cindy. And then at the same time, my GSI my GSI from cognitive, I think 200, I don't remember, 250, was also a grad student in Cindy's lab. So which is like a perfect combination. I got lucky, I have to say. So I got referred from two sides. So then that's how I got into my first lab. And my second lab is it's applying for basically a post-bac lab, and you like it's kind of like a grad application. You write essays, not necessarily essays, but you can write cover letter, and then you have like 3 recommendation letters to put in, and then yeah, it's kind of like grad school, but not really like less work of grad school, but similar. And then you interview a lot, not just one. So typically, you don't really work with the PI usually. It depends on the kind of lab. So you work with like specific person in the lab that you're going to be assigned to a project on. So you interview. It depends on the lab, but you interview certain people, and then if you get interview for the project that you like and the person that you think that you are going to work with in perfect combination, or like if you think you guys can work together, then that's how you would get into the lab. And it's just basically mostly I would think the best skill to get in to a lab is like to make sure you know what's going on in that lab. And usually the lab website, nobody updates it. So you do need the insider knowledge. And that is your main job, to get that insider knowledge, like what are they actually working on? And you have to find that out. That's your job. And usually it's through by, networking a lot. And then you go to seminar and actually talk to the people that what they're working on, or like yeah, you do a lot of networking, and that's how you know what they're actually working on. After you know what they're actually working on, then you can actually see if you're interested in that. And if you're interested in that, and then if you build skills for the things you need. But yeah, usually the most important thing is to know what's actually going on in that lab. Yeah. And then writing a very good email. That's my advice.
Thank you. Seda, I'll go back to you.
Yeah, let me think about the question. Okay. How did I find the research group? Initially I did Europe too. For educational psych research, it's a lot more niche. So like, when you go on the psych website, you're not going to find anything about educational stuff. Even through the school education, I've tried to find opportunities. It was really hard to. But through Europe, I got connected to my mentor. And then after Europe was over, I was like, kind of like, hey, can I keep working with you? She was like, yeah. So then I kind of just got put onto a bunch of projects from her. And that I think that was really nice because the reason I picked her specifically, so I got interviews with like a lot of more like big name net labs that actually have a name at UMich. But as soon as I talked to her, she was just doing her dissertation, and I was like, no, I'm gonna work with her because for one, she matched my like background, my identity, and for two, she actually cared about the things she was talking about. It wasn't just, oh, I want to work for this lab because it looks like a good name on my resume. No, I want to work with her because she's gonna best support me. She's not just gonna have me, getting free labor like sometimes Europe does or the working in the lab does. Like she's gonna be like, yeah, I support you in your future. I'm gonna help you get towards it. Oh, and then my other one that I got that one through I went and talked to like a GSI. She did a guest lecture in one of my classes that I really liked, and I went and talked to her after class, and I was like, hey, I'm really interested in the same things as you. And then she was like, let's connect. And then I kept emailing her about connecting, and then got on a call, and she was like, yeah, I got a job for you. Do you want it? I said, yeah, cool. I got it. But so I could say my best piece of advice is don't do it unless you actually care. Like, I mean, yeah, you need the experience, but unless you actually care, that's really what gets you in and sets you apart. That's how I got my interviews, is being like, I actually care about this topic, and these are the things I'm doing outside of it to prove that I care about this outside of a research stance or outside of just like me trying to get, oh, I got these volunteer hours. No, it was something I cared about or something I was like doing or something that's like related to what I want to do with my future. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I totally agree with what everyone has said. When I was in my freshman year, I didn't like know how important research and stuff was, so I didn't sign up for Europe or anything. And I started out working, I like wanted a part-time job, but I was working at the dining hall, but then I was like, maybe I should find something that will, get me some research experience. But like Zeta said, some Europe does give you course credit, and I think they do pay you at least. I'm not sure if they did when I was in my freshman year, but I basically just emailed a bunch of professors and I was like, do you have any position like part-time jobs or like part-time research positions? And the Global Feminisms Project had a position, so I signed up for that. And then um I okay, yes, if you qualify for work study. Um, and then I also for my thesis, I kind of did a similar thing because I wasn't really working with like a research lab. I took a class with a lecturer and I was really interested in her research, Dr. Dina Gohar, and I emailed her and I was like, could I do a thesis project with you? And that was in my junior year. And then I graduated, and the way that you get research jobs a lot of the times for full-time RA positions, it's a little bit nerve-wracking because a lot of the times you don't know until after you've graduated, which was a little bit, you know, you like graduate and you're like, I don't know where I'm gonna be next. But it happens, over the summer. Takes some time. A lot of labs do like interviews over the summer. I highly recommend academic Twitter, or I don't know if they're calling it X now, but um I found my job initially, my PI posted it on Twitter and I saw it there. And then I went to what I was doing sometimes was going to like places that I might want to live or universities I might want to do some research at. And I would go to their like open jobs and see their like research assistant postings. And that's where I found a bunch and applied to a few from there. For full-time research assistant positions, I would say you definitely, kind of like how everyone else has said, be interested in the project and like do your research for the lab that you're applying to. Definitely write a cover letter. I used to hate writing cover letters, but once interviewing for another research assistant job in my lab, I was like, okay, I get it now, why you would, you know, prefer someone that's actually demonstrated interest in your lab. And yeah, I think that's everything.
So I think we have a question in the chat about how would you recommend managing time with research and your other obligations to make sure that you can fully commit to both. And I think I'm probably going to ask, especially those, so Augustine, will do you and then Rachana again, because you guys are alums and you've had experience having to do this. Yeah, especially in that busy last semester of senior year. And then Zaida and Maram, if you guys want to weigh in on this, you can, but my guess is that you might have just as much to learn from this one and be wondering about this as well as you're thinking about applying to grad school.
Yeah, and when you say other obligations, I'm assuming school and like volunteering and whatever. Okay,
And
it
working in
includes
the
all.
lab.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so for me, I it sounds simple, but everything comes down to planning, right? So it's just how far can you plan your time and how detailed can you plan your time. And what I mean is, when if you're like a freshman or a sophomore right now, and if you're a pre-med, you should take all the hard classes by your junior year, right? So you can focus on your thesis in your last year. You can give more time to it because if you take hard classes to three science classes with thesis, it's not going to work out well because you are depending on how much you can put in the work, you are always going to be invested more in something. But what I'm trying to say is, yeah, it all comes down to planning. And yeah, if you know you want to do thesis, then make sure you take all the hard classes as much as possible. I don't mean take all of it at like your 3 years of school. Just take as much as you can, and then because thesis is a hard, it's not easy. Like the writing is hard, and everything is hard basically. Some people even started from like their junior year to start their thesis. It depends on how much amount of work you are putting in, but yeah, for planning, I would say as a student, as a senior in undergraduate, yes, if you know you're gonna want to do thesis already, then yes, take as much as hard classes already, and then you probably want to take four. So it is usually for thesis. Usually, you can choose your credits from 1 to 4, and then you probably want to put 4 because you're going to put in a lot of your work for your thesis, and then you want to put it as like a 12 to 13 credits at most, so that you could put in as much as possible because you probably do like volunteering or some other thing that you're doing. So you want to take your classes to like the minimum as much as possible, so that you could also focus on your other extracurricular if you're still going to focus on it. And then what I'm saying is try to lessen it because thesis is a lot of work, and that's how I did it. I knew I wanted to do a thesis, and then I take classes and then take summer classes too, so that I could make time for thesis. And then one other thing would be like when you're planning, it sounds simple, but like when you plan, don't just plan things, but plan on how that is actually going to be done. Like if you're going to wake up at 7 a.m., don't just like put one alarm, like put three alarm, or what I'm saying is plan plan the parts that is going to make you actually do the things that you tell yourself that you're going to do. Don't just plan that you're going to do this thing, but plan the part that makes you actually go through those stuff. So that's what I learned when I was doing my thesis, because you can like delay your timing a bit, and then things got out of hand, and it could easily derail everything. So I would say, yeah, when you plan, don't just plan things, plan things that you're going to go through, and what is it going to make you go through it. So that's my biggest advice on time management. Thank you.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that and kind of add to it with you should manage your time and like plan it well, but also um I would always try to kind of do like two birds, one stone. So like if you're doing research, try to get credit out of it. So that's like basically the class that you're taking. Or if you're like doing research, try to get paid for it. So that means that you don't like have as much need to maybe work another part-time job outside of school and stuff. So it seems daunting, it seems hard to manage everything, but it totally is possible. Um and I think that the university makes it pretty easy with like, getting credit for your thesis or independent research, or things like that. Um, I did my psych major and I did an English major. And I actually graduated a year early. And none of this is to like brag or anything, but just to say that it's like not impossible. And I did manage to like have fun in college as well, like hang out with my friends and stuff like that. Um, so it's hard, but if you like kind of manage your time and set some days where you're just like working on one thing. And it was like definitely in my senior year, for example, with doing the thesis and also finishing up classes and stuff. It was hard, but it was super helpful that you could get 4 credits out of the thesis. So that meant that the amount of time that I would have spent in a classroom or like doing homework or this and that, it was just time for my thesis that I could spend. And that was, and your mentors are super helpful always. So if there's ever anything that I found that everyone is super willing to work with you and super understanding if you're ever struggling. Yeah.
Zayda and Marama, I don't know if you had anything to add to that since you're kind of in the middle of it right now.
I'm not the best person to ask because I've I don't have any time left to manage my time. Like it's just doing school or work constantly from like 8 a.m. until midnight, like most days out of my week, except for one day, but then I still have to work. So yeah, um, just working hard, I guess, because I go to school. I'm on an honors thesis. I'm on 3 different research projects, and then I have my main job that's in person.
Yeah,
So
it
yeah,
sounds to
I have
me like what you've tried to do is have the research project be something that you're passionate about and that's fun. And then that makes it seem less
it's
like
also
work.
has to double as like, because like it also doubles as like a job because that extra, I mean, I could work less, but then that means I don't have any money besides the money to pay my bills. So it's kind of like give or take, but it's really just like working hard and doing those things you say you're gonna do, I guess, because like I make all these commitments, but if you can't if you are consistently not being able to like live up to the commitments you made, then you need to like know when you need to drop something or when you need to keep it. That's I guess the only advice I would say.
All right. Thank you for sharing. We are going to transition to discussing roles and responsibilities. So, do you attend lab meetings or work with other students, including graduate students? And if so, what does that look like?
I can start. So I do there are weekly lab meetings. And then within that, the undergrad students come and the 2 grad students as well, and they're clinical PhD students. And so we will either like discuss some article that our lab PI provided us or project updates. So like I said, we're launching a project right now, so that's taking up a lot of our time. But I think with my lab, I wouldn't say I like really work with the grad students, which I feel like is different from other labs. We're all like pretty involved with working with our PI. And I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. I guess I will say it is really nice to have grad students in the lab because like I think when you just like hearing them talk, they're so smart and like to just like to like be in the same room and like listen to everything they have to say is really cool. I think like at times or at the very beginning it was maybe like a little stressful because I felt like I didn't know that much. Like obviously I wasn't gonna know as much as them. And there was like imposter syndrome, but it's really just like the longer you're in a lab, the more you learn. And you just get more comfortable.
I can go next. My lab doesn't have grad students at over here because Brown doesn't have a clinical psych PhD program. They have like a postdoc internship for clinical. So we have a bunch of postdocs. So we have a bunch of RAs, some undergrad interns, RAs, and then we have postdocs and the PIs. And so we have two lab meetings a week usually. One is like for the specific project that I'm working on, and then the other is a more larger sort of like meeting with all of the PIs and all of the RAs, and there's probably like three or four that are kind of under the umbrella of the lab together. And so it definitely is great to have grad students and postdocs and of course PIs, because they're such valuable resources, because they've been through, at least grad students and postdocs have been through the grad school process most recently, and can give a lot of great information and advice on that stuff.
I can go. For my research projects, I don't work with any other undergrad students. I work with PhD students or people who already have their PhD. Yeah, like the meeting structure, I would say just like meeting once a week, and it's usually like kind of getting like we all have tasks that we have to be doing, so giving updates on how those tasks went, or a lot of the time I'll be like asked to do something and then I have to bring it to the meeting and be like, this is what I did, and then it's like they're like, yeah, that looks really good, or no, you didn't do this right, and you need to change X, Y, and Z about it. So it's just like, yeah, I guess getting your work critiqued. Yeah, that's how it feels.
Yeah, I think it largely depends on what kind of lab you're in, depending on how big the lab is. So the lab I'm in right now is currently, yeah, it's very big. It's like 40 people. So um, at first, they have an expectation of what your role is as a beginner, you know, when you work research full time. But then it depends on how you do in that project. And for example, I am currently assigned to the Huntington project in my lab. And then at first I would just like try, I think they only expect me to do like run the behavioral stuff and then do analysis when the time comes, right? They just have a certain expectation. But then if you show that you are capable of doing the stuff they tell you to do, and you want to take more on test on more on, then you just simply ask, and then they would give it to you, and then that's how you gain more responsibilities by taking care of the responsibility that you're given first, and then that's how so there was a side project within that main project, and I my PI is like, do you want to do that? Of course I want to do that. So it's like when you work on a project and you keep you if you excel at the stuff that you they expect you to do, then if you can ask for more responsibilities. But at the same time, I you have to be realistic about how much can you do, because even though I'm working as a full-time research right now, and let me tell you, it's crazy. So our lab has been transitioning since March, and we haven't finished like setting up the experiments yet. Like only about 4 of the behavioral experiments is ready to go, and other like still, you know, in transition, and we have to figure out a lot of things. So it's research is very slow and it's a lot of work. You might even just setting up the stuff, building up equipment and stuff, that takes like 2 weeks, even week working full time. So because there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of people to talk to, and there's a lab meeting. So you just need to be realistic about how much you can handle, and yeah, that. But yeah, the way it usually goes for me is that yeah, if you can excel in your responsibility, then you can ask for more, and then you can contribute more to the lab. And I think when you're working in part time, I don't. It is good that if you go to a lab meeting, but I don't think you're expected there, because honestly, I'm not gonna kid myself that I know what's actually going on in the lab meeting. You know, as a research assistant, like, you know, working half the time, and like when the PI talks, you have really no idea, and it's even now I still don't have any idea. Like sometimes I do if they're talking about my project, but you know, if they're talking about other things, I have no idea. But Yeah, I think if you're it's good. It's a good if you can go to it, but I think it's a bit different between working half-time in research, part-time in research, and then full-time. But full-time, yes, you have to go, and then you learn more about it, and it depends on the lab. But for me, we go to a full. I think all of the lab members, yeah, about or currently there are 5 of us right now. Have a lab meeting for 2 hours, and then somebody present, and then you criticize, or you if you can contribute, you contribute to that presentation, and then after that, you probably have a separate meeting with your own little team. If you're working with a team on a project, then you have a separate meeting of that. So usually there's like at least 3 to 4 meetings of you have to meet with your collaborators, because usually in research there's a lot of things to do, and you don't just do it by yourself. You need a lot of help, and you need collaborators. So you usually have a lot of meetings, not just within your lab, but with outside of your lab too. And that's how it usually goes for my experience. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, that's a great transition to our next question, which is what tasks did you start outperforming in your research? And how have you seen yourself progress over time working in your research role?
I can start. When I first joined my lab last year, the project that I was working on was just in the beginning stages. So it was not like there was just like, a basic idea of it, but we didn't have IRB approval yet. So it kept kind of getting delayed a bit. So when I first started, a lot of my tasks were like setting it up, like building some surveys, building some like of the surveys on like the collection platform that we use, and just collecting, like making documents, making manuals. Kind of boring at first, so you have to like just do a lot of like administrative tasks, and I had to like yeah, I was kind of just like making documents all day. But once we got IRB approval, it got much more exciting. And so now a year later, I definitely feel like I've grown so much in the position. I have like interacted with participants. I've done like clinical interviewing, um, which has been really interesting, and really cool to have that skill, and like speak and interact with the participants. So it definitely, you know, grows the longer you're with a lab. I get to work with the undergrad interns, and I also get to do some like data stuff, like just managing some like the data as it comes in. Yeah, just it's a lot of like being an RA, especially like in like a post-bac position. It's a lot of like a whole bunch of different moving parts that you're kind of like, it's kind of like being a project manager. You're kind of like looking after like the IRB. It's like, oh, we have to like submit this thing, or like looking after the interns or like the personnel, but also like keeping in contact with recruitment and participants, and making sure all the data is backed up. And there's a whole lot of different things, but that keeps it kind of exciting.
I can go. So, I was thinking about this. I don't think there was any tasks I started out performing. It was just the way in which I did the tasks that I was assigned. So, um, for the most part, I've had to do like a lot of qualitative coding, or like I was asked to like come up with ways to think about like a data set, like qual answers. Um, and I think the thing that really let me like kind of advance was like doing the coding. You have to have like interrelated reliability. So like I'd code it, and then my mentor would code it, and then I'd come to a meeting, and then it's kind of like it's one of my favorite things, because you have to come to a meeting and you have to be like all the ones that you guys disagreed upon, like you have to like code it the same way. And once you disagree upon, you kind of have to have both have like reasoning on why you coded it a certain way and try to change each other's minds. So it's almost like the having like that mindset of being like, well, oh well, I chose this, but I don't really care. No, it's like I chose this, and this is because this is why I think you're wrong, and just being able to be like, actually no, like not be afraid to have like a reason, and also have it be logical, not just saying something to disagree, but actually having like a reasonable answer. So I think just also always doing like the work I was assigned to. Also, come into meetings prepared. That was one of my biggest things that I think that got me somewhere was it's not just coming to meetings and like with your this task you were assigned and like doing it, because then I feel like once you get to the meetings and they're like, okay, well, why did you do it this way? Why are you thinking about it this way? Not just having like come into the meeting with like questions you could have answered yourself just because you wanted to double check with your mentor, thinking about if you can answer them yourself before you even come and be like, yeah. Yeah, I think one of my like most pillar moments of being an undergrad was I had to write this abstract and I put like a type of study design that my mentor put in. It was like an explanatory sequential design. I put it in the thing. And she was like, "Do you even know what that means?" And I was like, "Yes, in fact I do." And I like listed like I already had it ready like in my mind, but if I didn't have that ready, it was kind of like you got to know what you're talking about basically. But yeah.
When I started out, our project like it didn't have our IRB approval yet either, so it was kind of just stuff like I was like already provided materials and I basically just needed to organize them into a spreadsheet. And I also did like lit review here and there. I did summarize things. Like sometimes I would do social media related things or like Canva stuff. Um, but I wouldn't say like there was much to do just because it was the beginning stages of the project. A lot of work happened in those weekly lab meetings where we were trying to figure out like the direction the project should go in or like what measures should be included, what measures shouldn't, and like getting into more of the specifics. Um, and this year I'm doing more than I did before. So I'm calling participants and like confirming eligibility. And I'm also just like organizing data or like transferring data. And then also just like the senior RAs, kind of just like oversee the other RAs as well, or just like double check things that they had done.
Great,
Uh,
thank you.
it's fine. Oh, honestly, I think it's a bit of a stretch for me to say I outperform a certain task because you can always do better. And so it's hard to say. And then there's so many skills to learn, and it's all you're always learning in a lab. And like just 2 years of research, like that's too little, compared to people who did this for 30 years and they still have things to learn. It's crazy. So I would say it's a bit of a stretch to outperform some stats, but I think the thing that I would say improve upon would be like writing emails, because you have to write emails so much when you're doing research, and then when you're communicating about the literature review. I learned that at first I was embarrassed when I don't understand something and then I want to say yes, and then I'll come and like work on it 2 hours later and try to figure out and still don't understand it. Then see, it would have been more efficient if I just asked and like talk more about what I was confused about. So I learned not to be embarrassed after my honors thesis. I'm like, I'm never going to be embarrassed about what I don't know again. So I limit what I know, and like I'm like, if I don't know, like I don't know, like I am like I don't even think about anything anymore. It's just like if I don't know it, I don't know it. If I know it, I know it. And then like I'm very straightforward now when it comes to literature review and discussion. And that was a big help because when I started this current project that I'm on, then we have a Q&A session. And then I try to understand as much as I can. I ask all the questions so that if you ask, so your mentor can know the kind of, based on what kind of questions you ask, what part of understanding you are at. So you have to like, they can see what part of understanding you are at. And then it's not just one discussion. You have to do a lot of discussion to talk at every angle of the project, and then you would have a complete understanding. Because yeah, that's how I learned communication is very, very important. And it's so hard to communicate, especially like if the things that you're doing are theoretical and it's like, it's complex. It's like, yeah, you have to communicate very well, and it's not easy to learn. But one thing I would say is have a very strong integrity. Just say if you don't know, you don't know. Like even if it's a group of people, just say you don't know, and then like you're gonna go through it, and then yeah, it's make sure that communication is on top of your skill for that. Yeah, communication's pretty big, I think, and it's what you really want to improve on every time you're getting more into research.
Yes, I think that is, I think a lot of researchers feel that way of the more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. That's really great advice. And another really great transition into talking about transferable skills. So what are some of the transferable skills that you use in your research roles?
I can go first. So the best transferable skill would be writing, because I started with Cindy's guidance. I started learn how to write better, and I start to like it more, because when I start to write, I think more critically, and I'm like, oh, okay, I haven't thought about that before, so that's why I didn't understand this part. So I think writing to understand things is very important. It can be applied to anything. If you try to write a concept, or like let's say, so when you're planning thing, don't just plan it in your head, like write it out. Then there are holes that in your plan, like you're gonna actually find out if you write it. So I think writing is a very powerful tool in research, and you really want to use that. I would say I think it's in my opinion, I think it's the greatest tool, the most powerful tool in research, and that's why paper is like important journal articles, and if you learn how to write better, then yeah, you can basically improve in a lot of things. Yeah, not just writing itself, but I would say the most transferable skill you want to get is your writing skill, because you could apply to so many other situations. Oh yeah, even at school, I used to write, explain a concept, and then I write a test questions to I guess kind of predict what the exam is going to be looking like. And so yeah, writing is super important. Yeah, and you can use it for a lot of things.
Yeah, totally. Also a big thing that I've greatly improved upon, just sort of like trying to improve on in my life, is organization. So you have to stay super, super organized with research stuff, especially as an RA in like a full-time position, and you're managing all these different parts. Like I said before, it can get pretty hard um if you can't stay organized, which I'm pretty bad at that. I'm pretty messy, or like not messy, but just like organized chaos. But it's definitely super helpful to like keep a track of, like, write everything down, and just you can't trust your brain to like remember everything. So like whether that's in like a meeting with someone, or like making an agenda, just keeping everything organized, like backing everything up, just things like that. Oh, also I'll add being able to like speak and interact with participants, and also like maintain sensitivity with whatever they're talking to you about, or whatever they're sharing with you. And just you meet so many different kinds of people, so um definitely trying to maintain like sensitivity, but also like not being judgmental about what they might share with you, is definitely a great skill to have, just in life. And as if you're part of a research project that's recruiting participants, that's also a great skill. Just like how to sell your project and how to sell your research and get people to want to participate.
So I'd say for me, like probably like calling participants, organization as well. Um, and like writing again was also like a huge thing for me. I did literature review last year for the first time, really. Like the only thing I'd really ever done before was maybe finding research articles for an essay for some class. But like understanding like really what to do, like what to look up, what to think about, like how much to look into it, has helped a lot, like especially for my thesis. So much lit review for that. Um, and then I'd say also just responsibility, like an organization probably go hand in hand for me. Just like, I mean, it it's a huge project, and like it's really important to make sure that everything is being done correctly and to like be responsible with what you're doing, to like complete your tasks with full intention, to be at lab on time. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Trying to think. The transferable skills I think I used were trying to think. I think my research positions were a little bit different. So like for mine, it was those like really like critical thinking skills I learned, or like um I don't know. I would like think of like making frameworks to understand things, or like theoretical frameworks to think about how this makes sense in like the grand scheme of things. So I think mine's a little different, but overall, just having that like so like with like one of my jobs, I'll get asked, okay, we want you to basically this summer I get asked, we want you to create a evaluation of our program, period. That's all they gave me. So I guess some of the